Can you believe it's been 3 years since this trailer? Since we knew what Frontiers was? This was when we knew that Sonic Rangers was gonna be a thing, man. It's been 2 years since release. The game has only been up ever since it dropped, and the franchise has done a 180 in the public eye. And a lot of that is owed to Frontiers. That started this wave that we're on right now. And I just want to talk about a couple of things that I think that would make Frontiers 2 great, and that would absolutely blow Frontiers out of the water in every aspect. I enjoyed it, and I still think there was room for improvement, honestly. But I don't want to spend too much time just, going over a history lesson. So let's get straight into the yap session of a video that I'm about to give you guys. So I'm going to break it up into 2 categories, right? Things that I would keep and things that I would change. And we're going to start with the keeps. The first thing I'm going to keep is the Guardians. This honestly was the best example of, combat prowess and just general mid boss or, sub boss design in Frontiers. They all played extremely unique from each other, which was fantastic because it's very easy to get locked into repeatable bosses or repeatable patterns, and every single Guardian in this game feels unique from one to the next. Some of them are more combat based, some of them involve more platforming, like Squid and Fortress. Those are strictly platforming until you get to the very end of them, and then you are rewarded with basically a beatdown, and that's kind of how that works. And then you have some that are more actively involved in the combat, like Asura and Spider and Tank, where it's not too crazy on the platforming and it's just, beat the hell out of them. And I think that was really good because other than that, when you run into the random enemies just across the islands, they are kind of pushovers with the exception of the Final Horizon versions, because all of those have extended health bars and their behavior is different. They're a lot more aggressive. And it was really well done to me, honestly. The Guardians were probably one of, if not my favorite parts of the open world. Just, you see them in the distance, you're in for some shit, and you gotta kind of be on your P's and Q's to fight them. And I would love to see them return. Some of them return. Obviously, I want new ones in Frontiers 2, and we'll most likely get new ones. That's just the nature of the beast. But the concept of having these Guardians in the open world and then them dropping gears, which gives you access to the cyberspace stages, as a concept, I like that to return and be, expanded on a little bit for whatever the story or the lore in Frontiers 2 is, because I'm almost certain we're not going back to cyberspace. We've done that. We've done that bag. The next thing I would like to keep is the concept of islands, or not necessarily islands. They don't have to be islands in the next game, but biomes or locations. Sonic does cities really well, and I mean, this was the first one, so I'm not surprised we didn't get one. But in the next one, I feel like a cityscape would lend itself very well to the movement of the Sonic franchise. If for those of y'all out there that have played Bomb Rush Cyberpunk with Sonic mods on them, it's fantastic. There's a mod, right, where you can have Shadow as a playable character, Sonic and Shadow as playable characters, but the modders for that game have built Sonic stages into the game, and it looks phenomenal. It's one of those things that you see, and I'll probably have some footage playing right now as I'm talking about this. It's one of those things that you see and it's just that makes sense. I want that for my franchise. And I would like to see maybe a snow biome or a city. Like I said before, the desert's cool, the open world forest is cool, that's probably gonna come back. If we do get something water related, I would prefer it to be completely underwater. Aquarium Park from Colors is the first thing that comes to mind. It's an underwater civilization. I don't want it to just be hey, here's a giant lake that you can't really move around because of the drag. I would like the physics to be kept intact underwater, you know, and I'm pretty sure they'll do it. It's a competent team, but I would just like to see some new biomes, and I think that would bode very well, especially the city one, man. Dear God, please give me a city biome. The next and most obvious part of this is going to be the boss fights, both in presentation and in scale. This is the new standard for me, in all honesty. Like, the boss fights we got in Frontiers would be end of game boss fights in any other Sonic game. Like, we got 4 of them. And it like, I don't know what else to say, honestly. Like, this is just, I don't think we can go back to having, like, you know, regular Eggman boss fights for real, if in the Frontier style of game, you know. They all have their own caveats and, you know, boss quirks and boss behavior. So, like, the Giganto fight doesn't feel like Wyvern doesn't feel like Knight doesn't feel like Supreme, and, you know, that is fantastic, because it's really easy to, you know, make a giant boss that's just basically a fucking damage sponge. Like, that's the easy way to go about that. And I liked what they did with the Final Horizon versions of these, because the phases are still intact. There's still a phase 1 and phase 2, but in phase 2 they actually start to fight you back. So in phase 1 in the Final Horizon update, if you do a side loop on a boss, you know, it does its regular thing where it gets caught in the side loop and then you get some free damage. The next time you do it, it will either attack you while it's in that state or just straight up break out of it. And I think that should be the default, and I'm glad the Final Horizon did that, because that is peak to me. I love a boss that challenges my knowledge of the game and my skill with the moveset. Like, these bosses were fantastic. Every single one of these boss fights resonated with me. You know, everybody has their favorite. Like, I think most people tend to favor Wyvern, because it's really cinematic. Like, I love that shit. I think my favorite in this game was Knight, just because, like, the reactions you had to have with the shield, the timing you had to hit them and actually do damage. It's got my favorite boss song. I'm sorry, guys. Like, Break Through It All is a good song, but Find Your Flame absolutely clears, and y'all just gotta hold that. Sorry, I don't make the rules. But I would like to see this scale of boss fight come back, and please, dear God, give us playable Supersonic in the open world again. I want that to come back. I want, after we beat the game, you know what I'm saying? Like, don't just be like, hey, you beat the first boss, now you can play as Supersonic. Like, post-game, I feel like a post-game Supersonic would be a really good reward for, like, having destroyed all these bosses. And this is the standard for me, like, in presentation and scale. Like, the song's banger, the fight's good, it's anime as fuck. This is where Sonic boss fights need to go from the future for this style of game. And I hope that we get it back, even in grander capacity in Frontiers 2. As far as the changes go, combat is the first thing that I would like to see the changes to. I did enjoy the combat in Frontiers. It's fluid, everything runs really well together, nothing's choppy, nothing really feels out of place. But I would like to see some additional properties as well as an expanded move set. So, like, when I say properties, I would like an actual launcher. And I know, like, early on they said that they were looking at things like Bayonetta and Devil May Cry, but they decided that it didn't really fit the Sonic Frontiers universe or Sonic Frontiers style. And my only question was fucking why? Because the combat's already cool as hell. Like, why don't we have, like, real launchers or real ground slams or, like, you know, free flow between enemies, you know, just different things. Like, I'm not saying it has to be a perfect rendition of, you know, DMC 5 or Arkham City or Spider-Man 2, anything like that. It can do its own thing and just have some of those properties attached to it. Like, I want to launch a bitch in the air and then homing attack and jump off their face and ground spike somebody else and then have them bounce off the ground because I did a stomp in mid-air and then do all this other crazy flippity dippity shit. Listen, all I'm saying is we could have had, you know, Dante the Hedgehog or Metal Gear Sonic Revengeance. And that's not, you know, again, that's not to say that the combat in this game was bad or lackluster. It's the first game of this type in this franchise, and there's plenty of room for expansion, and I'm sure they're gonna do it. And I do appreciate the fact that almost every ability you get in the game can be employed in combat, like the fucking slide can be used as a small launcher. Your combo enders all do have different properties to an extent, like the upward one is a launcher on certain enemies of certain sizes. I just want to do more with that. Like with the skill tree, the spin cycle and the Sonic Tornado, like your hold square and hold X buttons in mid combo are essentially the same attack, just with two different animations. The same thing with the Sonic Boom and the Cross Slash. Those are the same attack, just with two different animations. I would like more variance in the skill trees. And that kind of just ties back into like the whole animations thing, because your basic 4-hit combo is the same. The only thing that's different is your ender. And a lot of the unused animations went into Phantom Rush, and that's where you can see kind of like roundhouse kicks, overhead punches, uppercuts with his fist. I don't know. I think it was a time thing. I think it was a time constraint thing that they just ran out of time to properly put in all the animations. And that's fine because the same skill tree applies to Supersonic. I don't think he should have his own skill tree, you know, just for the sake of 5 that we would only get to use 5 times. But I just expand on it. Just expand on the animations, expand on the combat, the properties, and we'll be golden. Well, you knew this part was coming. Probably the most controversial part, the cyberspace. Now, I didn't mind cyberspace in this game, as there was a lore reason that the stage assets were reused from some parts of Sonic's past. So I kind of got the explanation. In whatever capacity we get these types of stages in the next game, I don't think that they should be locked behind the portals. I also think that they should be, completely new, unique stages to that game, the same way the cyberspace stages we got in the Final Horizon update were completely new, never before seen stage designs, and that was great. The main thing with me is I feel like we could have incorporated these into the open world without, relegating it to its own separate thing. Kind of like the hub worlds in the adventure games, where like the majority of the game you're running around the open world doing challenges, fighting bosses, things of that nature, and then you kind of come across an area that turns into like a platforming stage, because there are some areas in the open world that had like little miniature platforming sections, and I was like, wow, this is really cool. These should be where the stages are. I think that'd be dope to see. And I think the reason that they didn't do it was because it might have made the open world feel bloated, because there was just too much stuff to do. So on the one hand, I get it, but I would like to see them incorporate the cyberspace concept or the platforming stage concept into the open world concept. I was a fan. Like I said, I know there were some people that had issues with the cyberspace stages. I like the cyberspace stages, especially after they fixed them. My one gripe was that dashing in 2D felt virtually useless, or boosting in 2D felt virtually useless, because you didn't really get any speed off of it. And I kind of understand it because it was more focused on the platforming aspect, and maintaining that same exact speed with heavy platforming, you wouldn't have been able to platform. So like, I understand it, But I think for that sake, if we're going to do that, then either all the boost stages need to be 2D, which won't happen because that would ruin any chances that we get for like a Rush 3 or a 2D game with boost gameplay, or let's make them fully 3D because this is, you know, a mainline Sonic game with boost in it, so I don't think people would mind, you know, fully 3D stages with, you know, boost mechanics. Like that just makes sense. That's what we've been playing for the past 16 years. Or if y'all want to go back to the adventure formula and just have, you know, everything be a mixture of maintaining speed and solid platforming skills, that'd be a cool way to do it, I believe, especially in an open world setting. Like that'd be sick as fuck. But the only thing that I would really say needed to change about them, I would just like to see them as part of the open world in some way. I think that would be really cool. You know, I wouldn't feel like it was bloated as like that's where the game takes place, is in the open world. So why wouldn't everything that you do in the game be in the open world? You know, let me know. Maybe I'm stupid for thinking that. Maybe I'm wrong. But just let me know how y'all feel about that in the comments. And as we wrap up, I just want to talk about a couple of minor tweaks that I would make to a couple of the gameplay aspects. The collectibles, it's weird because like I don't mind a game where you collect things, but I was at a weird place where the collectibles were tied to my progression, and I didn't like that. Was like my least favorite thing about Unleashed. Unleashed is one of my favorite Sonic games, and the fact that you have to collect medals to play the game was a big gripe for me. And in this game, you know, there are certain portions of the islands that you can't get to unless you've triggered certain cutscenes, and then the island will open up. From a gameplay perspective, I understand it. It's just one of those things that I wasn't really a fan of. I think a way to change that would be like, you know, have the collectibles give you like extra content, or maybe even unlock an extra skill in the skill tree or something like that. Once you've completed like a branch in the skill tree, like if you have X amount of collectibles, you can spend those to unlock, you know, a super skill or something like that, man. I don't think it should be mandatory or tied to your overall progression of the story. I don't think that's necessary. But it's, you know, it's in the game. I did it. So it's just is what it is, man. But like in the next game, I would like to see collectibles repurposed. The other thing, the pop-in that everybody talks about, it's an open world game, fam. It's gonna have pop-in. Like that's just the way that open world games work. There is not a single one of them that doesn't have pop-in in some capacity, and I wish y'all would stop making that conflated ass comparison to Legend of Zelda. The Legend of Zelda has pop-in, it just masks it with the animation of things like, you know, transfiguring into thin air. Like it's still pop-in, it's just more aesthetically pleasing. So if that's what you mean, then yeah, like I would like to see them, you know, maybe throw an animation over the pop-in or increase the draw distance so you don't notice the pop-in. But in an open world game, you're going to have pop-in. It's inevitable. That's just the nature of the beast. Even with all of our technology and all of our know-how and all of our skill, pop-in has yet to be avoided in an open world game. Maybe when we get like the PS10 or the Xbox, whatever the fuck they call the next one, pop-in will be eliminated and you can just have a fully functional, procedurally generated game. But until then, you know, just maybe mask the pop-in with an animation like Zelda does. That's probably the best way to do it. At least everybody's like, oh man, they won't glaze it, you know, the way they do the Zelda, because it's not Zelda, it's Sonic, and it's, believe it or not, it's still cool to like praise something that Sonic does in another game. But I think it would like at least give the community one less thing to talk about if you just throw an animation over it. The other thing, photo mode's fantastic. Loved photo mode. I would like more filters other than just saturation based filters. I would also like the option to turn off effects like the sparkle that you do when you're doing tricks, as well as turn off the background. So like the rails and the spires and things that come up, like the platforming assets, I would like the option to turn those off in pictures. That would be phenomenal to me. So yeah, that's essentially it, man. Like, y'all agree, disagree with any of the suggestions I made? Do y'all have any cool suggestions that you yourself would make? Let me know in the comments below. You know, I'm always down to have the discussion, share love with the people that love me. Like, y'all are a phenomenal fan base. Y'all usually show up pretty hard for the Sonic videos, so here's another one. But again, I appreciate all the subs. The one channel member I have, shout out Poochie9876, first ever channel member. Share it up, man. Like the comments. Like, I like talking to y'all. That's gonna wrap it up. I will see y'all in the next video, and I hope you have a good one. Peace.